I caught the drawing bug. I want to make sure that it turns out right. It's a challenge. Hello everyone, welcome to Art Lounge Alley. This is Project Part 56. I am your host, and I will be jumping into the project I was talking about earlier. This is it. So as you can see, it's coming along. It's entering its final stages here. As far as inking goes, that is. I'm not going to say final stages in general because I still have to color this, and that's going to be a whole other challenge. I don't think it's going to take me as long, but who knows? You know, I'm not going to make any promises. It really depends on how much I get sucked into it. So for like those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, this is a character that I've been thinking about developing. It is a robot who is excellent at playing music. He doesn't have a face. Instead of a face, he has a screen that displays emojis for whatever feeling that he's having. So I thought that would be pretty interesting in this very technological world. You know, where people are just completely consumed by technology. As you may have noticed, each person is wearing like a different form of screen, basically, as covering up their eyes. And they're totally enamored by what's going on, as opposed to paying attention to this beautiful music that this robot is playing. But for the time being, I'm trying to work on the background, really, and kind of just take it from background to foreground. For no particular reason. I don't think that there really is an importance in that, but for me, I just like the idea of finalizing the drawing by finalizing the main character and the foreground character. I think they really add a unique flavor to the entire piece. And really, I've been getting more into background development, because that is something that I haven't really focused that much. Really being focused on anatomy, focusing on characters, but noticing how backgrounds really also create a very interesting vibe. It's not just about the characters and how cool of a concept you come up with, it's also the kind of mood that is being set. And a lot of that has to do with the background. Yeah, it looks like it's a little too dark. Those windows are too dark. They're taking too much attention. So some of you may have heard me talk about Game of Thrones. I have been watching the continuation, House of the Dragon, and it's great. I really enjoy it. Last night I watched the most recent one, and I saw some sort of article that was talking about how the scenes were just too dark, and I thought that was so that was typical. It was typical, I want to say, media publicity. Like they were trying to get more attention for themselves, because watching it was great. There wasn't anything about it that really needed that sort of attention. Like, it's just an artistic style, and it was something I think used specifically for the series, or for the episode, not the series, because I think that episode was kind of like a very moody sort of vibe. The general concept of it all was very much like everybody is in this like gray area. They don't know how to interact with one another. You have all these family issues that are happening and at the same time they're pushed to interact with each other. So spoiler alert, there is a funeral, but you guys know, if you've seen the previous episodes prior to the most recent one, you know what the funeral will be for. But they had to attend the funeral, and everybody's just kind of like walking on eggshells. They're not really sure how to interact with one another. So the mood of the entire scene just really plays into it. How they're doing the cinematography for that moment plays into that idea. So when people are like complaining, like, oh, it's like too dark, you can't even see what's going on, maybe it has something to do with your TV. You just didn't turn the brightness on too much. But I thought that it really did add to the mood. I really like that about it. And I also thought that, thieving the dragon didn't call for losing an eye. That was so extreme. And of course, it's like bratty kids who don't know how to control their tempers, and they end up doing something really stupid. But that whole scene, I was just like, man, what nasty little brats. Like, would just go to that extent over something. And, I don't really think it has anything to do with what a lot of people would ascribe to it. It'd be like, oh, these people with money and power and all that, they just don't know how to. Because I've witnessed awful, bratty, and crazy behavior of that kind in all sorts of classes. It's not just rich, and it's not just poor. It's just how kids are raised that really determine their behavior and the choices that they're going to make when it comes to conflict. So I think it's a myth when people try to attribute things like money to such things, or class or whatever else. It just has to do with parenting. It has to do with education more than anything else. So but I think ultimately it was the king's fault, because he didn't think about the sort of environment that marrying like his daughter's best friend was going to create as years go by. Like, sure, maybe at the time they were young and it didn't seem like much of a problem, but he just didn't account for the fact that they're gonna get older, and they're gonna have this like these ego battles basically because of these circumstances, like having to know that like your best friend is basically banging your dad. Like, that's really weird. That's really uncomfortable, and you have to live with them too. It's not only that, but you're in close corners with a person like that at all times. So just that idea on its own is already really toxic. It's like a really toxic environment, and he didn't think about that. He was just like basically thinking, shallow thinking. Didn't really consider that, and because of that, it brought like all these other issues. Had he chose a different wife, and had they just stayed friends, I think it would have been totally different. The outcome would have been completely different. There wouldn't be so much vendetta and resentment and egotistical strife, because at the end of that episode, when she's like, oh, and now they get to see what you really are, it's already showing that like really a lot of this resentment has to do with this long-standing battle between them as friends. And I kind of wonder, like, what would have happened to his daughter? would she, well, it's a lot of the things are because of the king's decisions. Because you see these the sons, and they're ill-tempered, right? So it's like, well, what did he worry about if, let's say, she became queen, taking the throne, taking the name and all that? Really, like, it kind of comes down to that, like, what would have happened if that was the case? Would all this other stuff unravel? Would all this, like, uncle stuff unravel? Just so gross. I can't believe that it ventured in that direction. Oh. And that's actually what I wanted to discuss. Like, there was this long scene where, they're romantically involved in the last episode, and I'm watching it and I'm wondering, like, what's the point of that? Like, you don't have to show that they're having this very romantic moment together for an extended period of time, because all it doesn't say, oh, look at that, that's such a beautiful moment, like, which is what they're trying to convey. But throughout the entire time, it's like, this is disgusting, this is so gross, and why are you making everybody watch 5 minutes of that moment? It's a really gross moment. No matter how many, like, rose petals are blowing in the wind, it's still pretty disgusting. The whole concept is really gross. So I think they went a little far there. Like, what was the point? I didn't see any purpose to it. Had it actually been, like, not not incestual, then okay, like, I could understand it. You could make this a sexy scene, and it could go on for longer than needed, and it's fine. It's no big deal. But just that idea on its own, it's like, what's the point? Like, you're just making your audience really uncomfortable. I hope people felt uncomfortable and they weren't, like, taken into that moment and being like, this is such a romantic scene. Like, it's really gross. It's such a gross thing. And I know it's acting, obviously, but that's the whole point of it, right? It's supposed to convey real reality to it. And of course, it is based on reality. There was a lot of that going on back then. But still, it's just, I felt like it was totally unnecessary. But yeah, you guys could talk about it. Tell me what you think. If you guys saw that episode, what did you think of that? And did you think that it was over the top, or like, what's your opinion on that? I'm kind of curious to see what people's perspective is when it comes to that, or the entire episode, really. Like, I still enjoyed the episode a lot. And I thought that that scene of the son taking the dragon for a ride, which is really awesome, actually. Like, I like the dragon as well. It's like this, it looks like a sea monster that's kind of mixed in with, like, a dragon as well. It's kind of hard to explain, but like a dinosaur. I remember I saw some sort of image of, like, a dinosaur from the sea. I can't remember the name of that specific type of dinosaur, but it looked very similar to the design of that dragon. And I thought it looked really cool. And in general, like, even without comparison, it's just such a great job that CGI did with it. But I do think, and this is me nitpicking things, I do think that actors just really have a difficult time conveying that realness. Like, you could tell that they're just staring at nothing. that they're staring at some green screen or something, or their reaction, even like when he approaches the dragon for the very first time in order to summon it. It's just, you could tell that they can't really act as if though there's this huge giant creature, that's, you're basically like a size of a penny for them. Like that monumental moment, it just doesn't convey. And what I guess I'm getting at is, if it was actually an animatronic sort of experience like they had for certain movies back in the day, I think that would really even sell the person's emotions, or it would convey the person's emotions better, the actor's emotions better. I always notice it, and I pay attention, like when they're standing on a boat and they're looking at the dragon passing over, it's like, you could tell they're not really seeing anything, and plus it's just not in sync with what's going on. Like the amount of time it takes them to look around, the dragon has already passed, or he's not even in their line of vision, kind of. So it's like, So I wonder, like, why not? I'm sure they're spending a lot of money for the CGI. Why not actually like try to construct one as like an animatronic one? I guess it would be like a huge waste of resources. I don't know. But I'm sure you could like take it apart and then use it for some other for other movies or something, like if you actually spend the time and develop one, that's really cool. And just have like a combination of both, maybe. Obviously you're not going to have one flying around or anything, but for the sake of having actors really convey that emotion of like, oh my god, this is like a giant beast that's right in front of me. Plus it would be pretty cool to see that, so I think it would up their viewership. People are going to be like, what is this thing that they constructed, and how does it look, and all that. Because despite CGI being really realistic, you kind of always know. Whereas I think with animatronics, it's a little bit different. But yeah, that scene when he takes the dragon for a ride, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought of it as like a metaphor kind of for him becoming more, maybe more ruthless, coming into that aggressive state. He was a little bit too shy, and he didn't really defend himself as much, and that was like a point where he just kind of became more brave. It was just like an indication of his bravery in a way, like a metaphor for his bravery. And I think the other real big problem was, again, it was like, the decisions that they made for her to get married to her husband was also just based on the king's concept of a rule, right? Like, oh, you want to align yourself with the best sort of allies, so the person has to marry based on that rather than do they actually have a connection. Because if they married and they had a connection, all this other drama wouldn't build up from it. Like, she wouldn't have to see people behind their back and having kids, and then having those kids not even look like the father, all that stuff. it came from this oppressive kind of approach, right, to marriage, to all that stuff. And because of that, all this other chaos started to spawn itself, right? Like, yeah, I just think it's ridiculous. Did it all start from not having her rule the throne? You know, had she actually took that position, would things start to escalate in this direction? Because it's turning ugly. You know, the fact that she's getting on with her uncle and they're forming some sort of an alliance, and how crazy he is, you know, so I don't see it going in a good direction. And I just think about it, like, where did that all come from? Like, where would any of that stuff have been different? Or where could it have been changed to prevent all that chaos? All right, I'm going to focus on this building right here. It's going to be the final one. And I'm still wondering whether I should just haven't done any building of this kind, but I'm just trying to see how that would look compositionally in comparison to the welcome sign. Hmm. Nah. It's an interesting design, but again, with everything else kind of, I'm gonna say no dice there.
Hey baby, it's me. I was just calling to chat with you a little bit. I miss you a lot. And I miss hearing your voice. Bye, hon.
Kind of borrowing from Assassin's Creed. I'm gonna say the last one that I played really stuck with me. Like, I really enjoyed that one. I enjoy all of them, but I think, I don't know, I guess I just, every single one that I play, I kind of really get into it, because I like the third one too. The third one was very unique as well. But the last one, which was Syndicate, that I played, really stuck with me because it had some interesting characters there, and it was like right at the point of the Industrial Revolution. It played a very pivotal role in history and modern day. We're still, I think, we're still in that era. We're kind of bound to it. Prior to that period, there were all sorts of changes, and we're just kind of stuck in this industrial era where things are stagnating, and the only thing that's improving is money. The fact that people are making a fuck ton of money. That's pretty much it. Like, as far as progress and in terms of everything else, there isn't much, as you can see. So it was just kind of interesting, having to go through that series and just kind of learning about all this different stuff that happened during that period, what led up to it, and how things started to unravel during that time. And also seeing how interesting London's structure was. That there were a lot of very much distinct areas, area that's dedicated for religious people, area dedicated for people who are mentally insane, basically, area that's dedicated to factory work, so it was all kind of divided into it. And I think it's still very much like that. It's just updated, slightly. But yeah, it's kind of cool. And then you got all these other characters that play into it. Like, there was Karl Marx, and he was there. I think Edgar Allan Poe was there as well. So, like, all these other characters, and you get to interact with them and find out more about what their process was, or what their role was in that period. It's very interesting. I really, really dug that that era. Just trying to see here how happy I am with the perspective of that building, because I feel like the horizon line is suggested elsewhere in comparison to other buildings. So for the sake of consistency with the other buildings and the horizon point, I'm gonna have to angle things more here. But yeah, I'm kind of borrowing from that. The buildings, the designs, all that stuff. If once I do take a longer break, maybe some point in the future, I'm going to take a break from drawing. That's the game that I'm going to really spend a lot of time on, is Assassin's Creed. And they're coming out a new one soon. So I'm like, damn it, I got 3 more games to follow up on before I even get to the newest. And there's so much there. Like I that's one game I hate having to rush through. Like I absolutely detest the idea of like speeding through any of the parts, because there's so much history. Like they take so much time to develop that history. You know, the stuff that you would read, or the stuff that they leave for you to read about the lore and all that stuff. It's so well done. Like there's so much accuracy there that I don't want to rush through any of it. Like I really want to take time and think about it. I even write about it too. Like it just brings in a lot of ideas and just like thoughts, because the whole point of it is that it's sharing the way history has unraveled itself in a way that isn't being taught in schools. Like they're leaving out really important information. Obviously they're like brainwashing people to think this is how history has unraveled itself. I mean, you could tell that people are just like anti critical race theory and all that other stuff. Like they don't want education to actually educate people. They want education to like brainwash people. So it's kind of cool to read about all that stuff and get this like insight, basically, which is a lot of fun. Again, I don't want to skip through it in any way because of that. drawing little mushrooms for windows. Trying to see how they look at they look in the distance. That last one being kind of wonky. And that game is like the very few games that leave like a memorable impression. Like there's some that I play that I'm just like, yeah, that was fun. But this one, it just has like so much, I guess, emotion tied to it as well. Like, I think back to any of them and I'm like, man, what a great time. Because it's so immersive, like, because they get the costume designs and it's like you're really traveling in time. That's really what it is. It's like you're really traveling in time because you are, it's not a fake world really, you know, it is based on history, and because you are being informed about a lot of stuff in it, it just really encapsulates you as well. So if you guys haven't jumped on it and you enjoy that sort of gameplay, you gotta jump onto these Assassin's Creed games. Lots of fun. And there's a part of me that's like, should I get a PlayStation 5 simply for that? You know, because I hate the idea of like playing the game and then it's stuttering or, you know, having like glitches or whatever else. And I feel like just getting the console and playing it is just gonna avoid all that, because it is available for these like streaming services, but I'm just so anti these companies. I don't think they're really, like, the way they're conducting business, I don't agree with it, and I don't want to contribute towards it, and I don't want like them collecting all sorts of data because of that. You know, just that idea on its own. Whereas if I get a console, I feel like I'm not dealing with that. I'm just paying this one company. I may be naive to think that they don't collect data either, but I don't know. I'm okay with Sony as opposed to like Amazon or even Nvidia. Like I had Nvidia as the streaming service, and they really snoop around. Like they collect all sorts of stuff, and I hated that. Not only am I paying for the service, and sometimes the service would stutter, but they're also like collecting all this personal info, and who knows like how deep into the deep in your hardware they go when they do that. So it's like, no thanks, man, no thanks. background is slowly... I'm slowly getting through with it. A little bit concerned about these other lines here, though. Because again, I don't want it to take a lot of attention. So, like these lines right here are making it darker. And the focus is kind of going way too much towards that building, as opposed to just kind of blending in with the rest of the buildings. I want the focus to still remain on the front, in the front scenes, and not have to focus so much on the back. Pretty dense, I'm gonna say, with these buildings. Really get a good understanding by removing all of this other stuff. It's getting closer, everybody. It's getting closer to really finalizing this process. Still got a couple of characters to go, so I'm like wondering whether I should work on those and then on everything else as well, but I'm really gonna go with this here. This post. That the only person who's listening to the main character's music is leaning on. Gonna give it some grit. It's kind of a unique cut. I don't see that many people rocking this. Like, I don't know. Is it like a bowl cut with pigtail, with a ponytail? I have not seen that yet. Kind of inventing hairstyles here. There you go. That looks about like she's actually looking at him. Whereas before it was kind of ambiguous. Was she? Blowing out this smoke. Don't smoke, y'all. It's an awful habit. It's disgusting. It gives you gross breath. Everybody wants to step back when you're talking to them. At least I do. Whenever I talk to somebody who's like a smoker and they just had a cigarette, oof. It's so gross. And with that said, everyone, I unfortunately have to end the stream in just a few minutes. I'm gonna try to do her like neck rings and probably end the stream. Quick little fact about neck rings for those of you who are not familiar with it. It is an African tradition or part of African culture. I'm not sure if it's still the case, but the more rings you have on your neck, the higher in class you're considered. Which is not what this is about. This is purely just an aesthetical thing. But some of it is pretty bad. Like, the girls would wear it since they're really young. So basically all that time period, the neck is just like not getting any sunlight. And I think, I don't remember if I read this or not, or if I saw this like a documentary, or if like maybe I'm mixing things, so you guys should look into it. But from what I do remember, they were saying that because of that, the neck wouldn't develop the strength it needs to hold itself up once they do remove the rings. You know, if they ever do. I don't know if that's a thing. But that's a little scary, isn't it? Like, you will never have like a normal neck because of this tradition. or their necks are like incredibly elongated because the more rings they put on, the more it stretches their neck. You know, so if they're doing it since birth, well, not birth, but since a really young age, and they just keep on layering on those rings, it just stretches and stretches and stretches. So it's like, it's probably the reason why the neck can't support itself is because it's too long. But here I just thought it would look cool to add some character. Alright, everybody. I'm gonna have to end the stream for the week. It's been fun. I really enjoyed this. I'm gonna continue working on this. Looking to complete this. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it next week, but I'm gonna work towards that. That's for sure. I've got other projects that are getting in the way, as well as finishing up the special stream that I mentioned frequently. So look out for that next week. That's something to look forward to come the beginning of the week. I'm going to be introducing you guys to some new content, which is pretty exciting. Pretty happy about that. So if you guys enjoy this content, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. They both help grow the stream, branch out to more people, and of course is appreciated by yours truly. And I will see you guys next week. Enjoy your weekend.